So, where we're going to start this morning is, of course, with an introduction to monitoring and evaluation and impact assessment. On that note, I am trying in my own language again. We spoke a lot about definitions over the last 2 days. I'm trying personally not to speak about M&E as if it's the same thing. So in my own language, I try to speak about monitoring and evaluation and impact assessment because it's 3 different things. We speak about M&E as if it's one thing. So, what is monitoring, what is evaluation, and what is impact assessment? Monitoring really focuses on program management. It's not going to tell you whether you had an impact. It's not going to tell you whether it worked or not. Monitoring is really a project management activity. If you have said in this program, you're going to have 200 workshops for 2,000 teachers. Monitoring is going to tell you, did the workshops take place? Did all 200 take place? Yes or no? If not, why not? Did all 2,000 teachers came? Yes or no? What were the problems? Were there problems with logistics? The reason why we didn't get to 2,000 teachers is quite simply there was a taxi strike on the day, so only 500 pitched. That is the function of monitoring. It monitors every activity. So you have to be very clear on your expectations of what monitoring is. It's not an evaluation. It's not going to tell you whether it worked or not. It tells you about the mechanics of a project. So, what is evaluation? Evaluation uses monitoring data, but it goes a step further. It now speaks to the outcomes of this program. It looks at specifically 5 aspects. Was your program relevant to the needs? Does it address the needs? So relevance is the first thing that must be tested in evaluation. Was it effective? Was it efficient? What is the impact? And is it sustainable? So it speaks really now to the outcomes. It's not concerned about the activities, how many workshops, how many teachers. It says the teachers were at the workshop. Did they learn? Did their behavior change? Did their motivation change? Did their knowledge increase? Did their competency increase? And as a result of that, they became better in the classroom, so it was an effective program. And as a result of that, we can consider that the increase in pass rates is a result of the efficiency of the program, the impact of the program, so therefore it was a good program. Right? Impact assessment considers these different levels of change that happened. So it would consider, in the same example, the teachers, the 200 as a result of the 200 workshops, as a result of 2,000 teachers being better equipped, the pass rates increased, attendance improved, behavior change, they were more motivated, so they developed their own curriculum. And the result of that was enrollments in the schools increased. It draws the conclusion of what is really the difference being made. And it considers, was that only in one subject area. So was it a direct impact? Was it an indirect impact? It considers whether it was a short-term impact. It considers whether it was a social impact or an economic impact. It considers impact on different kind of stakeholders in different dimensions of change. So let's be very clear. What is monitoring? It's directly related to the activities of the program. Evaluation looks at what we said we're going to do, did it happen, and what changed as a result of that. And then the impact assessment says, now so what? Are there any questions on that? Yes?
Because it's always a very complex area for me. So here you start considering your indicators.
Yes.
Is it evaluation?
Thank you. Beautiful question. Indicator identification already starts in the proposal stage. It starts in your theory of change. It starts in your logic model framework. So when you look, if you haven't designed your own program and you request for proposals, we're looking for a skills development program. And here comes a proposal from an NGO. In that proposal, they're already going to tell you, we're going to do it this way because we hope for these outcomes. And that's the first time already indicators are identified. It is such an important question because here's the point that I want to make about the practice currently. Be very, very wary if there's only quantitative indicators. Because that tells you about the scale of the project, not the change of the project. Let me give you an example. So, if the proposal tells you, for 2 million rand, we're going to do 200 workshops for 2,000 teachers over 20 days in 4 provinces. It doesn't tell you what's going to change. Okay, it just tells you the scale. And that's the problem with quantitative indicators. And when I look at reports, even the reports that's published publicly, it tells us we spent 2 million for 2,000 teachers. Like, okay. So, thank you very much. So what? The only conclusion I can come to is 2,000 teachers in 2 million rand, so how much did it cost me per teacher? And heaven forbid there was a taxi strike and only 20 pitched, because then it's a very inefficient program because of the cost. Then you pay too much. But it doesn't tell you, it doesn't give you a description, it doesn't give you a feel. And so when we speak about indicators within the next 2 sessions, this is the biggest challenge currently for practitioners. It's not how do I measure actually, it's what do I measure. It's that indicator thing. So I want to just tell you, so already in monitoring, and you'll see in all the templates that we've developed, we ask specific indicators at each. Now, if I say monitoring, so the typical indicators would generally be all the quantitative stuff, because it tests for the effectiveness and efficiency of the program. So how many teachers, how many workshops, how many books, how many camps, how far did they travel, how much money was spent. Of the budget, after 6 months monitoring reports, we earned 50% of the expenses. We went under budget, we went over budget, because then we had to rent taxis. And then the caterer increased the price, and so there was like, it's all quantitative stuff. Monitoring by its nature, because it's so activity specific, because it's actually a project management account, is quantitative. Evaluation, I've already said to you the 5 biggest things you must look for in an evaluation. It's got nothing to do with numbers. When you speak about relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, none of that is a quantitative indicator. So typically, if you look at the outcomes envisaged in an evaluation, it would speak to what was the change on the individual level, the teacher. Did they acquire knowledge? So here's the question, how do we test? How do we evaluate the acquisition of knowledge? By speaking to them. But what would be an indicator to measure acquisition of knowledge? Pre and post. So you need to know they knew this before they started, and then we taught them something here, and now they know this. So typically you would have had a competency kind of assessment to be able to do that. Now, how are you going to test for that? You could give them an assignment. Can you see, the beauty of a measurement process allows you not only to define what you're going to measure, but how you're going to measure. Now, here's the conflict in this process. You're expecting the implementation partner to do this. And this is where monitoring and evaluation also integrates. Because in order to get this competency assessment to be able to measure the change, you will have to integrate into monitoring a competency assessment. So typically, here comes another indicator that's added. There was a competency skills audit done in the form of a format. Can you read? Can you write? Can you do sums? How many sums can you do? Can you do this kind of equation? Say, for instance, it's maths or whatever. And then the monitoring would tell you, we've assessed 700 teachers of the 2,000, and the literacy level or the knowledge level was X. That's a monitoring activity. So that needs to be integrated into the evaluation and say, based on the baseline, and we've now done a test, we've asked them to conduct an experiment or write a paper or an exam, and we've confirmed it through an interview. Therefore, we can now say as an outcome, knowledge improved by 30% in the subject of accounting. That's the evaluation. The impact assessment would typically say, because of the knowledge that's been acquired, the impact thereof was on the children. Hence, pass rates improved. And how are we going to test that? Well, there's another process. We're going to look at pre and post. Here's the thing, and this is, I think, what we underestimate as well. It's only once we're in a process here that we realize, oh, we should have had information here about it. Like you now asked. Oh, so we've given it a template. This is your monitoring template, and this is your evaluation template. But it's only once the first evaluation comes out that we sometimes think, oh, how am I going to know this? Now we've got to go back. This is 6 months down the line. The first 1,000 teachers has already gone through it. And that comes back to your partner selection. It's almost inherent that we think NGOs knows this. They're going to do it anyway. But here's my question to you. Whose job is it actually to really look at the program management aspect? Exactly. You cannot just put out a call for proposals. Proposals is going to come in and you're going to say, thank you very much. We've decided we're going to give you our 2 million rand in our education budget. Please go away and tell us 6 months and 12 months later what you've achieved. We've actually, in current practice, divorced ourselves from all and any responsibility. And then we look at it and like, did the program work or not? Well, no. But we've never ourselves gone through these program steps to think, if I fund this, how am I going to monitor it? How am I going to evaluate it? How am I going to assess it? What kind of information do I need before I start? What information am I going to gather during the process? And what is the outcome? Now, you will remember over the last 2 days how much emphasis I've put on what do you want to know? So when you start developing your theory of change, your theory of practice, your logic model framework, your mind constantly is at the end of this process, what do I want to know? And so I want to thank you for that question, but it just shows you that you can't just pass the responsibility and just expect an NGO to do that. There are very few NGOs. Which is why when you do your due diligence, don't look at the NPO certificate. Don't look at the proposal. What you're looking for is capacity to really understand what's got to change. So one of the competency checks in your due diligence process is, do they have the capacity, do they have the experience, not just in the program design they're going to give you, but in monitoring and evaluation. If not, guess what's going to happen to your budget? Because it's still your program. If they're not going to give it to you, and you're not going to pay for it, which is another problem, you've got to pay for it. You've got to build it in. So for every 2 million rand project, guess what? There's another 200,000 rand for monitoring and evaluation. And I'm not even talking about impact assessment. And we forget those costs. Because we're already not paying operating expenses for these poor NGOs, but we think it's part of the service. If they want 2 million rand, they've got to do these things as well. And I really think that is so unfair. We're expecting miracles. And so when our information management systems, if we're not able to report properly, well, it's because we didn't get the data. Why didn't we get the data? Because the NGO didn't give it to us. Why didn't the NGO give it to us? Because they're incompetent. They're not capacitated enough. I just think we need to accept our responsibility in this process.